I want to take the opportunity to invite Jennifer to come to the stage. And Jennifer Greyson, I want you to give her a warm welcome. One of her claims to fame is what most powerful or most, just in the top 8 women in crypto. So with that, I'm going to give her the stage.
Should I use this one? Does this work? All right, okay, we'll use that one. All right. So when I tell people that I'm in charge of an artificial intelligence project, usually I get one of 2 questions. They either want to know if we're building Skynet or if computers are going to take over their jobs. And I try with a very straight face to say, yeah, actually we are. But when we talk about our predictive AI, it's the decentralized version of Skynet. So we like to refer to it as basement net. And AI is going to take over your jobs, but it's only going to take over the parts that make you hate Mondays. So it's going to take all the mundane parts. And I toss both of those out in jest, but there's a lot of truth to both. A lot of the biggest players have weighed in on AI. China has said they want to have the international competitive advantage by 2020. Last week they put out an article that they also want to start setting the technical standard. Google co-founder Sergey Brin just urged caution on AI. And there's Facebook, which enough said about that one. And Elon Musk has also been very vocal about artificial intelligence. He's brought up a lot of advisory councils. He's really come out and talked about the concerns about that. And so what we really like to address is that blockchain is tackling a lot of those issues, a lot of the fears. And a lot of the AI blockchain projects are collaborating. Because not only is blockchain a very new space, but artificial intelligence is a new space as well. And there's another component to blockchain that we're harnessing. Right now, Bitcoin is 1,000,000 times larger than the world's largest supercomputer. But all of that compute is just going to cracking a useless hash. What we in the AI industry have started looking at as blockchain projects is how do we put that to work? And when you're dealing with artificial intelligence, the way to make it stronger, better, faster, and more intelligent is to put more power to it. And for us, doing prediction is all about the 9s. So 96% is great, but 96.9% is better. 96.99% is better. And in prediction, if a data scientist can get 8% better, then that's a really phenomenal number. So when we can start adding artificial intelligence to what's already happening out there, and we can start adding that accuracy, it really helps what we're going to be able to accomplish in the artificial intelligence industry. But back to talking about jobs, and is artificial intelligence going to replace jobs? It is. It's going to replace all of the mundane parts of it. And if you could have an assistant that you could outsource all of the pieces of your job that make you less creative, and if you had an assistant that you could outsource everything to, and not have to worry about whether or not she would hate you in the morning, you could really be able to create a niche for your job. And that's what artificial intelligence has done. But will we trust it? And there's a pretty steep learning curve with AI. It's kind of what robots do. They kind of ease in there, and that's kind of how they get you. But when we look at Google, when Google first started out, it was, did you really trust the directions it was giving you? And it took us all a little bit, but now most of us, when we pull up Google, we trust it's going to get us there. And same with autocorrect. Do you trust it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Voice to text, same thing. It's getting better. Do you trust your Netflix suggestions? When you get to the end of that show after binge watching Breaking Bad and it gives you a suggestion for the next one? Not always. But a lot of that is because of how we've trained it. So for me, if I'm logging in on my mom's Netflix account, she's watching Downton Abbey and the Great British Baking Show, and so I'm getting suggestions that are The Crown and The Tudors. If I'm logged in under my little boys, I'm getting suggestions for Despicable Me and Minions, and so it's all about the training that we're giving the artificial intelligence. And so we have to take those factors into account, and it's the same with the trust that we create for AI. So as we talk about outsourcing, using the AI to outsource the parts of your job you hate, it would be about how you trained it. And the AI would begin to know the way you write your emails. It would know the way you schedule your meetings. It would know that you haven't talked to Bob in a while, and so it needs to schedule a meeting for you next Thursday with Bob. But the AI is also going to have other data that you don't have in there. It knows that traffic is going to get really bad this afternoon because of some reason that you can't possibly know. It's going to go ahead and reschedule that meeting with Bob. It's going to go ahead and call in your reservation and push it back. So AI allows us to have that level of efficiency if we'll trust it. Artificial intelligence is basically the Teflon for life. It kind of takes away all the friction. So I like to ask people if they had the choice between 100 Bitcoins or the ability to travel, which would they take? And typically, everybody picks time travel, because then they could go back and they could buy Bitcoin at $2 or $20 or $200 or $2,000, or they could bet on the World Series, or they could kill Hitler, which are all fine answers, because either way they want to better themselves or they want to better the world. But being able to predict the future is the same as being able to travel back in time. Predictive AI basically makes you a superhero. It gives you the ability to tell the future. And since we're all here at the Kentucky Derby, we can use that as a really great example. We'd all love to know who's going to win on Saturday, right? And if you've been in the industry for any length of time, or you've done even a little bit of homework, you kind of know who the favorites are. If you've watched the Derby for any amount of time, you know who the good jockeys are. And if you're in the industries, maybe you were raised in the industry, you can know even more. You know the good bloodlines, you know the good trainers, you know who runs on a wet track better, you know who runs on a dry track better. But that side of insider information kind of goes for every industry. But there are still things, even as an insider, that you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know where that grain came from. You wouldn't know whether or not there was a drought, and so there's locusts inside the grain, and so you're feeding that to your horse. You don't know what the weather was going to be on Saturday. We have a guess. You don't know what weather your competing horses ran in last week. But AI takes it one step further, because no matter how good of an industry insider you are, you probably aren't going to know that the horseshoer lost his mom last month. And so when he put new shoes on that horse, the front left one is 1/4 of an inch off, and that's going to cost that horse 3 seconds in the Derby. But the AI is going to know those kind of details. The thing about AI, and this is where the learning curve gets really hard, it's not going to tell you why it's giving you the answer. This is where we have to start trusting it. The prediction that you're going to ask it is who's going to win the Derby, and it's just going to give you win, place, show. And that may not be even remotely what you think. It might not be what the industry insiders think, and it's not going to tell you why. None of it may make sense. So do we trust the AI? And we can use another example. If we talk about Wonder Woman, when that movie came out, it kind of took everybody by surprise. Even though looking backward, and this is kind of the things about those surprises, and I wouldn't call Wonder Woman a black swan, but we can treat black swans the same way. When Wonder Woman came out, everybody was really surprised about how well the movie did. And I would think if you were in the entertainment industry, you would have loved to have known that that movie was going to be such a hit, because you could have filmed another movie. You could have filmed a Netflix series that people could go home and binge watch. But the AI would have known that it was going to be a hit. But we couldn't have known the political landscape. the Me Too movement, the sexual harassment, all the components that went into why women were so passionate about that being such an amazing movie, and for them to get such a fantastic hero out of that. So we can go back to the Derby. If you want to know who's going to win the Derby on Saturday and you ask a predictive AI that would be a really easy answer. Well, what if we could go back a little bit farther and you could know exactly which jockey to pick? What if you could go back even a little bit farther and you could know which trainer to pick? What if we could go back even farther and you could know exactly which mare, which stallion would run on the best weather for today? And now you can apply that to any industry. Any industry. I saw an article last week that said AI is going to have $1 trillion impact on the financial industry in just the next handful of years. We look at what it's going to do for insurance, for hurricane modeling. Bruce talked about having a passion and a purpose behind your token and your project and what you're doing. And for us, it's very much about narrowing the cone of uncertainty for hurricanes. We were deep in the data last year when Hurricane Irma came through and wiped out the island of Barbuda, which is why we've chosen to put our company in Antigua, and that's one of our projects, is to narrow the cone of uncertainty and to help with the rebuild of the island on Barbuda. But that hurricane modeling also affects the insurance industry and what that looks like. You can add it to airline tickets. Would you have liked to have known what day to buy your airline tickets coming to Nashville? Global warming, real estate. To be able to know exactly what city is going to have a boom in the next 3 to 5 years, which neighborhood. Again, the AI is not going to tell you why. You're going to have to trust it. And AI is coming. We're seeing it already. The question is, do we want to allow a handful of companies to control it, or do we want to equalize the advantages? Granted, betting on the Derby becomes a lot less fun if we all know the answer, but I feel like maybe that's the next evolution of mankind, that it stops being us versus them, and it just becomes us, a better us, a newer, smarter us, one working alongside AI, with AI, in collaboration with AI. Thanks. You guys have any questions? Yeah.
So, do you really think that we're going to be able to go back in time?
Oh, for sure. Because we'll be able to predict who's going to have the time capsule. Absolutely.
So, what about the blockchain?
Oh, so for our project, we've pushed back our token sale a couple times. We are really committed to being a leader in the space. We want to establish a lot of best practices. We have a lot of things coming in our token sale that are, we hope, going to be the new way to do a lot of these things. So we are about to start our pre-sale. We're hoping that'll happen in Q2 and then on into our public sale.
Are there any other blockchain and AI technologies or coins that you've looked at that you're excited for in the space?
Absolutely. We have a couple of really great partnerships that we've done. Some of the blockchain projects that we've really looked at are ones that we can apply AI to just to make them better. We just partnered with Iagon, which is one. Singularity is another. They're kind of trying to be the Amazon of AI so that you can start there to find any of your AI, whether you're using predictive AI or robotics or deep learning, any of those. Those are some that we really like. We've also partnered with Oceans Protocol. So really we're looking at partnering with blockchain, AI projects, as well as big data, because for us we use live streaming or live data. And so it's important for us to be able to find projects that have that capability on the big data side as well.
You talked a little bit about the amount of waste that goes into mining as it's currently conceptualized with proof of work. Could you talk a little bit about some of the AI-based alternatives to mining?
I don't know how well I can speak to that. For us, it's really just about being able to use that compute for something. I mean, ours all goes to helping the predictors, and anybody can come to onto our network with anything they want predicted and the live data stream that they think is going to help correlate to that. And so that's where the predictors then bid for that. And so for us, it's being able to build out the network so that all of that compute is going toward supporting that AI and being able to crunch those algorithms a little bit better, a little bit faster. Any other questions? Good. Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
You mentioned more company or control as a monopoly on it, on the AI. What do you think the risks would be if too many organizations have are working within that in the AI industry?
Well, right now what we're seeing, I mean, and we've talked to a lot of companies that they're really limited right now to where they're getting their compute. They're having to get it from Google and Amazon, and it's really, really expensive. So not only are they having to buy their own systems, which we have one advisor who spent $500,000 on his system, and he still is having to buy time from Google to use their compute. And so it's not really a matter of those not being there because they're already there. And so it's already existing. And what we're trying to do is really level the playing field, because we just don't feel like a kid in Iceland shouldn't have access to that same level of compute simply because he can't afford to pay the Google bill. And so it's already here, and there are already limitations on those small subset of companies. I mean, really right now, the companies that are able to use AI to better their decisions, to make better decisions as companies, are the really, really big ones. And so it almost what we're seeing, or what we're about to see as AI continues to grow, is a bigger level of disparity between the really, really big companies that have a better advantage because they're just going to start applying AI to what they're doing, versus these small companies that can't afford to hire a data scientist and go to Google and pay those fees. So really what we're seeing is the ability to distribute that power across all of the systems.
He said, I mean, at that time, Andrew told me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
How do you get more information on your project?
Yes, sorry. The project, so I'm Jen. And our project is Neureal, and it's neureal.net, and it's Neureal.
And you'll take any questions off stage as well?
Yes, I'm more than welcome. And I have cards, so you don't have to remember how to spell that.